Okay, good evening and welcome. It is the November 20th, 2023 meeting of the school committee. Call the meeting to order 5:05. This meeting is being both audio and videotaped, and I would ask that everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Sam, if you'd start, please.
Samantha Blasquez, Secretary.
Pamela Blair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Antonella Rochella.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Gregory Thompson.
Sarah Trulio.
Pete Leiden.
Amy Delenta. Heather Brown, Director of Curriculum.
Audrey O'Neill.
Student Rep.
Don, I have a no signal on your screen. Is that affecting anything?
So that I didn't get a chance to look at.
But you're still going. We can go as long as.
You're running.
Okay, thank you.
I'll get that up on.
Okay. I have minutes for approval, please. Could enter a motion.
Move to approve the November 6th, 2023 executive session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Antonella. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0.
Move to approve the November 6th, 2023 regular session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Antonella. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Thank you. Committee and subcommittee communications. Audrey, would you like to start tonight?
Okay, so a lot happened last week. Obviously, that was like the school's big week. We had Spirit Week, which finished with like the pep rally, powder puff, and our semi-formal. And I just mentioned them because Mr. Page sent out emails. We had a lot of communication because they really were trying to foster like the school environment, get that back. And speaking of like the school values, the Key Club is running a Thanksgiving boxes drive. So that's like everyone's bringing in their stuff in tomorrow and it'll be delivered on the half day. And I know there's the opportunity, I'm not sure if some students are doing it, to actually go and have dinner with like the Kiwanis organization or lunch. And then as Schools Matchewitz, this might be a personal plug, but they are coming up on December 2nd. So you can watch East Long Meadow compete. We just had our NHS induction, which I mentioned last time, and that was really nice to see. And all the fall sports are done, but if you guys want to show up to support, there is the Thanksgiving game. So just a lot of stuff for the town.
Is the game here this year?
It is.
Yes.
And time of the game,
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Awesome. Thank you so much, Audrey. Appreciate it. Amy.
I just wanted to share that I had the opportunity to attend the state committee
Delegate
assembly and everything. So I just wanted to share that I attended that. It was really interesting. It's the first time that I've been, obviously. So
Vote.
I did. I voted exactly the way, obviously. But I was really interested, like how, all of the, the communication and conversation went. It was really kind of cool to be a part of that. So yeah, just wanted to share that with the group.
Very cool. Thank you. Hey.
I attended my first LPVAC collaboration board meeting last Wednesday. I almost got voted president on my first meeting. So yeah, it was very impressive. I got out of it, so we're good there. But we did get a new director, Alvin Morton, who shared some of his plans and visions. So it was pretty exciting. Some things they have is the new criminal justice program for ninth graders coming up. They have an open house, I believe, on tomorrow, the 21st, there at 7:00 at night, if anyone's interested. And then we just approved the financial report for the year. So
They're going to offer a criminal justice program at the collaborative.
yes,
That's neat.
yes, for ninth graders only.
Graders.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool.
That's exciting.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. Yeah. Sarah.
Last week, myself and Greg and Gordon went to the town council meeting to watch the vote for the appropriation for the natatorium in the school. So that was a positive, and I think that was my only update.
Excellent. Thank you. Antonella.
I don't have anything right.
Okay. We're gonna move right along then. We have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee, seeing none. We have the quarterly report for the first quarter.
Yeah, so in your packet, as always, you have your first quarter, which is dated September 30th, 2023 for FY 24. It is a spreadsheet that is designed as a financial update for you for your operational budget. It also has the grants and revolving. So if you go right to page 5. Action is, you'll see at the top section is where your salary accounts are. And I just want to remind you that, the salary side of the budget is over 80% of the operational budget, right? So most of these funds are encumbered at the beginning of the year, as we talk about anyone who's salaried. There are many positions that are not salaried, so those there are not encumbered. So you'll see balances remaining there. As you work your way down, I mean, there's nothing that jumps out at me, except to say that the paraprofessionals and the teachers have higher than normal balances. I would also like to just bring to your attention, I thumbed through my paperwork for resignations, those kind of things over the summer. There were 15 resignations. There was 4 teachers, 1 classroom nurse, 1 permanent building sub, and 9 paras. So there's a lot of changes that happen, in that August, September, getting ready for school.
The permanent subs at the buildings, my understanding is we were taking those funds from the substitute line item, some of them.
That's correct. So
They haven't-
we had approved 2
Yeah.
for each school, 1 to be ESSER funded and 1 to be under the sub account.
Is that the 18 expended already?
I'm sure it's part of it, yeah,
Okay.
along with other
Okay.
subs.
Yep.
That's correct. And I will double check that. We have an internal process when new hires come through or after the budget process. Then I need to communicate that to Tammy and payroll so that, the right hand's talking to the left hand where we're planning to budget the money
Yeah.
where we have is where it's being expended. So I will follow up just to make sure.
Was it at one, you're saying 1 S or 1
That's
operating budget per school?
That's correct.
So 5 and 5. So it's probably not all reflected in the 18 then, correct? The 5 out of the operating budget?
Well, it's not encumbered.
Yeah, right.
You're
Yes.
asking me here?
We wouldn't encumber it until what, as we go?
I believe so, but I want to
Because it's
double
not
check
a
that.
salary position.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, that makes sense.
But again, I will double check that for you. I just wanted to bring those resignations to your to your attention, just so that you were aware that a lot of things do change, right before school comes in. Does anyone have any other questions on the salary side before I move down? So on the bottom section is your expense side of the budget, which again is about 20% of your budget. And you'll see that, most of this is encumbered. I have a couple of line items too, equipment maintenance and repairs that I'm showing a negative balance there. That's because we did have a lot of maintenance things that came up, but one that is jumping out at my mind is that we needed a new alarm system upgrade over at Birchland Park, and those kind of things. All of a sudden, when your alarms aren't working or they're not tied into, fire alarm, and it moves right up to the top of the, So what will probably happen with this is that ESSER I'll probably do a journal entry to cover this, because capital projects for ESSER grants is 30,000. So if it's under 30,000, I don't have to go through like the larger process with the ESSER grant. So I'll keep an eye on that and see if we need to then use the ESSER funds for that.
Is that 77 going to be sufficient going forward in terms of the operating budget?
If I
5 schools,
if
that's
I use that with
ESSER.
ESSER.
right, but that's going to go away someday.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
September 30th, 2024.
Right, so next year is that, or should we look at that number as we go forward?
We probably should, yes, look at it to increase.
It's early too as well, right?
It is,
To be running in the red.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
Although a lot of our maintenance happens in the summer. So you'll see that line is generally well spent, not in the negative, but well spent as we come out of the first quarter, because we do a lot of the maintenance in the summer. And so, especially if we're bringing in outside contractors or anything like that.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. The other line that I wanted to just bring to your attention that jumps out, of course, is the out-of-district tuitions. That's a large amount in the negative right now, or as of September 30th, 260,736. But that is mainly because the IDEA grant had not been set up yet. It had not been approved. So and I knew it was coming. So you'll see that reflected in the second quarter where those will be changed.
It'll put it back in the positive.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then any additional expenditures in that grouping out of district tuitions would be charged to circuit breaker.
Yep, after the 1.9.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's our plan.
Okay, great.
Does anyone have any other questions on the bottom section for your expense side? So just as a reminder, and for the folks out there listening, our budget at the bottom here is 34,618,458. As of September 30th, we have expended 4,598,301. We've encumbered 26,840,654. Because remember, that's the bulk of the salary side. And that the remaining balance is 3,179,500. And then we can move on to page 6. At the top is your grants, which the committee has already approved all of these grants. They should all be here to you. Just going down the column here, we start with the ESSER 3. There is a substantial amount. I ran a report as of Friday, and there's still about 900,000 there. So, we are going to have to work on expending those by that September 30th. And we have some nice ideas that we'll bring forward when it's a little more organized for you in the next quarter. We have the Title I. Mostly that's the paras that were encumbered. We do pay for, I believe it's 6 paras under that Title I. Title IIA is a PD, 37,000 remaining there. That'll be used up as the year goes on. Title IV, that is, Heather, help me out. Is that for the MCAS, not the MCAS, the AP exams?
We do use some of that for AP exams. There's a couple of different things around safe schools, wellness. Anyway, so there's a PD that will be paid for by that fund because it falls under it.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I knew that you knew more about that.
I didn't encumber it. I needed that.
A gentle reminder.
Yeah.
And then you see we did roll over from FY23 10,385 in IDEA funds. Those were from Equitable Services, which I believe I had explained at the end of the year and why we needed to roll it over. Those are funds that are mandated for us to only expend on what they call equitable services, which are students that are homeschooled or in private schools that need. So it was rolled over and we were still using that over the summer and we're still using it now until that 10,000 is gone. And then the line below that you'll see is your FY24 special ed IDEA grant, which you'll see nothing has been encumbered because it just came on the books. Yeah, I just set it up in mid-September there. So you'll see that reflected in the second quarter. Then you have your special ed early childhood grant that pays a portion of the early childhood, thank you, coordinator there. So that's been encumbered. Then you have your state grants, and that's the comprehensive school health, which the Administrative Health Services, Candace Goya oversees, and that has not been expended at that point. We have the METCO grant, which pays for salary and transportation. I believe the salary portion was encumbered. The transportation had not been, the PO hadn't been set up yet. So again, you'll see that reflected in the second quarter. And we have that that grant Unify Against Bullying that you had approved last month, and that has $1,127 in it. Are there any questions on the grant portion? Okay, then we'll go right down to our revolving accounts. So I always put the carry forward in the first column, and then your receipts, and then your expended, and then your ending balance. All of these are nice, healthy looking balances. Trying to think do you want me to go through every single one? Do you want me to just go to things that I think that you'd want to know, like the circuit breaker? We were able to, as you recall, we rolled over $1,090,354 from FY23 into FY24. That amount must be expended this year. I am anticipating we're going to get $1.7 million in revenue. And I'm anticipating as of right now, $1.2 million being expended from the circuit breaker. School choice, we have a nice, healthy balance there. This is something that was new to our district just a few years ago. We have some nice ideas for that we'll be talking about in the future and things we'd like to see maybe happen for the district. What do I anticipate for school choice? I believe right now, I checked with Samantha, we have 45 students in school choice. Of course, that can change. So at minimum, we should expect 225,000 revenue this year. It does come in quarterly with your Chapter 70 foundation money that comes to the city. But this is then deposited into our revolving account.
Does it come in three of the 4 quarters? That's
correct.
each, yeah.
Yep. Correct. So it's 26,000. Hang on, I have that here. 26,157 per month. So if we stay on target with that, it would actually be $313,000 that would come in revenue for the school choice. So all in all, as you can see, I mean, that's 2.8, $3 million that was carried forward. Seats of close to 250,000, expended 461,000 for the ending balance there, $2.8 million. You know, as a reminder, it's imperative to remember that the balances provided are a snapshot in time and are constantly changing. Welcome.
Hey, any questions, concerns? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the.
Make the motion to accept the report for the first quarter.
Yes, no, you're right, Kate. Motion made by Antonella, second by Kate. I was just looking for the dates, but we're good on the first quarter. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an update on curriculum and professional development.
All right, so we just had our first of 2 full-day professional development days on the 7th of November. We offered 43 different workshops. They're all aligned to SMART goals. We had the LDC Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Director attend one of our workshops, and teachers from other LPVEC schools attended as well. They're invited for some workshops. 84.8% of staff reported somewhat satisfied to very satisfied with the PD day. And the majority of the teachers of math attended the math labs precursor, which is implementing practices that promote thinking classrooms in mathematics. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we just had a whole week of math labs last week, plus we had another round today and tomorrow, and then we're going to do it again in February. So I'll explain all of that. This is just kind of to give you an idea of all the different workshops that were offered. Some of them were, most of them were 90-minute workshops that were offered multiple times so that people could choose different things. Sometimes they were specific for different grade levels. They all had, the audience, but there are ones around restorative spaces and really just creating those spaces for kids to be in the space to learn. We did a lot around tools that we have as a district to support universal design for learning, such as Google Read and Write, Learning Ally. These are audio books and things, tools that allow kids to do speech to text and text to speech. We had curricular workshops around some of the new curricular materials, such as written wisdom planning. The science that the high school got to, because they're up for a new science curriculum, they had a whole workshop on to explore one of the options for them out there is just Open Sci Ed, which is what the middle school uses. We also had some workshops on Power School for folks and the new IEP. So we're able to really offer a variety of different things. And so people were able to hit different you know, if they wanted to do something around restorative spaces and go to a wit and wisdom workshop, they were able to kind of do more than one thing. So seemed to work, that model seemed to work really well for folks.
Where it says, and maybe I'm missing part of it.
It's kind of cut off.
I know, wit and wisdom planning, were there 5 teachers there? There's like,
Oh, it should say K to 5 teachers.
oh,
The audience got cut off. Yeah.
Oh, you can see it through there.
So there's the spreadsheet that they got was a little larger with additional information, but they got the spreadsheet a couple weeks beforehand, and then they were able to kind of choose their workshops and sign up through Teach Point. And so they also had an explanation. It's too much to put on one slide.
No.
Yeah.
that's what I was like, only 5 teachers left.
No, yeah.
Now it makes sense.
And that was cool because I think I had mentioned before, we have 2 wit and wisdom leaders who are getting trained with a national cohort with wit and wisdom to really kind of take on our professional development and onboard people. One is the literacy coach at Meadowbrook, so it's great. And that coach actually led this PD while she's being observed by wit and wisdom as part of her practicum, I guess. So that was pretty cool to have that opportunity. And we did have a keynote, which was actually a performance by an organization called the Performance Project, which is made up of all youth, high school and early and college students who are first generation, mostly first generation Americans. It was a very moving performance. And there were a couple of things in there where, for example, from their own experiences in classrooms, there was a teacher speaking and saying some things that we would hope never to hear in a classroom. So there was definitely some mixed reactions around the performance. Some people thought it was lovely, and these are some really positive things, and other people were kind of taken back. So I also shared with you the email that I sent out to everyone to really frame the why, and that, you know, in a performance, we're not always going to necessarily agree with what the performers are saying, but it's important for us to understand that these are some perspectives. And especially as our town continues to diversify, even though these students were from Springfield and Holyoke, their families might have had different experiences like that. So I wanted folks to remember that if you have parents coming in who might have had negative experiences with their education, you know, those are things to think about. So I did give them some questions to consider as well. And that email seemed to land pretty well. So overall, it was great, but I did, in case, you know, you had heard about this provocative performance, it was intentional really to get people thinking. And one of the things that we learn in a lot of our professional development with CLE is you're not learning unless you're in the risk zone. You know, if you're feeling really comfortable, then you're not necessarily learning. So it definitely puts some people in what we call not the danger zone, but the risk zone, kind of thinking about things that they've never really had thought about before, because we are hearing from voices that we don't always get to hear from. Overall, people really thought that the content and materials they received were helpful to them as a whole. Your numbers might be a little different because I refreshed, it's connected to a spreadsheet. So 48.7 strongly agreed and 37.3 agreed. Very likely to use the information that they learned. And there was some high satisfaction as well. So I think overall, at this last more feedback, people were happy about the workshops that they got to attend. And a lot of the workshops that we offered will be offered again in January. So people who weren't able to do, you know, they got waitlisted or something, will be able to do that again in January. And then there's some continuations of some of the things that they did in November and January as well. So, and I tried to provide as many of those descriptions to them that were happening in January so they can kind of plan out their whole trajectory of peace ahead of time. Questions about the PD day before I go into the math learning lab?
How much was it a choice? Like, did they get to choose everything that whole day?
So the lack of choice was that everything was around SMART goals. So it wasn't like anything kind of far out there. But they did get to choose their the workshops, and that was intentional. I mean, we might do it in a different way, but it definitely improves motivation and engagement when people get to choose. And most people self-selected for. So, for example, the math workshops that were designed to help them with the learning labs, the majority of people who taught math signed up for those. So I've done it the other way too, where it's like you have to go. And you know, that sometimes affects attendance. So it's kind of a mix.
So then will you go into classrooms now or anytime soon to see like how much they are using it?
So
How will you monitor that?
So I can tell you a direct connection. So for the math labs, the Flynn Education came in and did those PDs on the 7th, one for elementary, one for middle, one for high school, all about the best practices of building thinking classrooms. And for those of you who are not familiar, based on 15 years of research that kind of showed, I have one statistic that's really upsetting. The amount of thinking that really happens in our math classrooms, where kids are often just
Across the country.
across the country. Yes, across the country. He did not do his research here in East Longmeadow, but it is applicable. Based on his research, less thinking and more non-thinking behaviors were happening in classrooms. So things like slacking, stalling, faking, mimicking. He found that 75 to 85% of the students exhibited non-thinking behaviors 100% of the time. And the rest of the students exhibited non-thinking behaviors for all but 8 to 12 minutes at a time. Because we've kind of conditioned kids, especially with I do, we do, you do, that someone's going to tell me what to do, right? They're going to teach me the procedure. So we purposely, the implementation committee purposely chose illustrative math, which is an inquiry-based curriculum, but like any curriculum, it can be taught, even though it's designed for inquiry, taught anyway. So we really wanted to bring in some professional development that would have an impact on folks in terms of diving into the curricular materials, which are new for some people. Some people piloted years ago and this is now their third. Some people it's brand new. But understand that we wanted to, and this is our vision, we really wanted to make sure that kids were active thinkers and that it was a student-centered experience. So the math lab, and I am getting to your question, I'm backing in, was about, we had grade alike groups that came in, looked at an illustrative math lesson for K to 8, the high school used their reveal materials, looked at the lesson and kind of worked together collaboratively on how we could create this in a more student-centered way that could really elicit more thinking. And Flynn Associates also brought in some of the best practices that Lily Dahl came up with. For example, he found that kids were quicker to get engaged and longer when they were using a vertical non-permanent space. So they're able to take risks because it was a whiteboard, not chart paper. And they actually stayed focused longer on a vertical surface than on a horizontal. Random grouping so that kids don't kind of get this idea that I'm this kind of learner, that the expectation is that everybody can do that kind of high level thinking. Then the facilitator brought us all into a classroom and she led the lesson and we all observed. And we would do things like teacher timeout or teacher huddles and kind of make decisions as we went along. And then we debriefed. So the expectation is that teachers will start to implement some of these practices in their classrooms. And right now, since it's kind of just the beginning, it's like we're looking for a student-centered classroom where kids are talking, thinking together, not in rows, not doing individual worksheets all the time. So we're going to keep building on this. My hope is because all the math coaches were involved, that the math coaches will eventually feel comfortable leading these kinds of experiences too, so that this is something that we will continue. Administration also attended. So they're also working with the coaches to what should I be looking for in a math classroom? So to answer your question, for math, yes, math was the one kind of pervasive curricular professional development that hit a lot of people and will be something that we'll see an impact in the classroom. The wit and wisdom was very much an opportunity to continue to dig into the modules and plan, because really the way you learn wit and wisdom is by actually teaching it and planning ahead of time. It's not something you can wing. For that matter, neither can with illustrative math. So they got these explanations of what the learning labs were for, why they were 3 hours, what the expectation was from them. And these are just some pictures. This happened K to 12. And so we are able to see kindergartners step up just as much as, sorry, not K to 12. We went through geometry. So there might be some juniors in the geometry class, but it was mostly freshmen and sophomores. And teachers really doing math together, thinking together, collaborating together, taking risks together. And then we were able to observe and then debrief. So it's one of many. I just wanted to share how crazy this was. I'm shouting out the principals and the secretaries for helping us get subs, because it was quite the gargantuan effort to get release and make sure everyone was getting their planning time and all of that, and not missing out on that. So people.
Ms. Brown subbed in a second grade class.
I did. I got to teach second grade because we didn't have enough subs.
Released.
So that one of the second grade teachers could go, and it was wonderful. I had only taught fourth grade. That was the earliest grade I've ever taught before. So I got a little taste of second grade, and it reminded me actually a lot of my seventh graders that I had. So there's a little more polite than my seventh grader. So as you can see, people found it relevant. There's mix around using the curricular materials, something that we need to focus on. They're coming back in February is how we can make sure that people are connecting these practices to implementing curriculum. And that a lot of people said that they were going to implement something that they learned. So the push really is making sure that folks are utilizing these curricular materials in a way that's going to increase student thinking and student ownership. Because that's really when they're engaged, they're learning and are going to be able to transfer the math. When we just teach them how to do a procedure, it's really hard for kids to transfer those skills into something that's different, because they've only kind of, they've been following steps and they don't necessarily understand how those apply to different novel situations.
I was able to attend one of the
Explanations
today, and had 12 teachers from the elementary level, and most of them, because they do a pre-lesson, pre-planning, and most of them had great questions specific to what they were going to witness, because they were only about 2 days out from actually having to teach that lesson themselves. And so they were interested in what they might be able to take from the lesson and actually use within the next 2 days when they teach the lesson. So that was pretty cool. And the teacher huddles are really cool too, because if something which happens all the time in classrooms comes up that's unexpected, we hadn't really thought about it in the lesson plan, the person is who's teaching the class may make a decision to go a different direction and then huddles with the teachers to explain why. Or she can also give a moment for the students to continue to be in their productive struggle, have a teacher huddle, and as a group, they decide what direction they want to go, which is pretty cool too. So our teachers are actively involved in how that lesson may evolve as they go through it.
Just going back to kind of the similar question that Antonella had, when there's, I think you said it was 43 options or 46 options.
Yeah.
For PD, what does principal participation look like? Because that's a lot of different options for principals to be honing in on and then to be able to provide feedback on afterwards in terms of like action steps, even for the two of you as well, because if you're going on learning walks and providing actionable feedback and establishing trends, then it's a lot of different variations. So how does administrator participation work on those days?
We made sure they all attended the thinking math classrooms.
They attended the math and the wit and wisdom more often than the other ones. The workshops were roughly 90 minutes, with the exception of some that went either a full half day or a half day or a full day. So say, for instance, the new IEP, that was a much longer one. Mr. Fredette attended that one, and so he'll be following up with them. The administrators, for the most part, were looking at the continued implementation of the literacy curriculum, as well as now the work that we're doing to support the math curriculum. And so that's what we'll be following up on and talking about as we get together as a leadership team.
Also in the options, I didn't really see anything for
secondary ELA teachers connecting with instruction and learning, teaching and learning.
So they're up this year I have worked with them in the past. We've done book studies and things. They're up for new curricular material. So we're going to be looking at that. So once we choose, that's when the PD will start going stronger for them.
But even anything to do with instruction, because we saw our data, and there needs to be some kind of change or shift in instruction, or else we're going to keep seeing the same data.
And that's the point here, right? We have new curricular materials that are designed to be taught in a certain way, and therefore we have PD to help make sure that instruction's happening. It's the same kind of idea with the high school ELA, because what I found was the idea of trying to, first of all, we need to have what are we teaching, right? In order to have the conversations about, well, then how are we teaching this in a way that makes sense? And some of the units they were trying to recreate things and create from scratch, but the amount of time, the amount of know-how to create curricular materials. So what's really helped with the elementary is everyone's teaching these curricular materials, right? We can collaborate together. We can kind of work on shifting our instruction. So that's the thinking behind that. Like, it's not like I'm not thinking of it. It's just that once they have that, we can it would be a good way of jumping into all of it. It's like, okay, well, how does this shift our instruction?
That's for elementary.
No, I'm talking about the high school.
Oh, I thought
The high school is going to have new curricular materials next year.
She's utilizing the experience of the elementary teachers.
Okay.
And replicate it at the high school as we look at curriculum renewal this year.
All right. So then we're not really doing anything with ELA this year.
They are in the process of investigating high quality curricular materials, which involves conversations around what does it mean to be high quality.
Are they given time to do this? Or are they like on a committee, or is it?
It will be release time most likely in their department time.
Okay.
I think that most teachers, is it like a race to get into the PD they want? Like if they really need wit and wisdom or the math, like if they don't get in. did a
No.
lot of
I
teachers
made
not
sure
get in?
it was funny because I had set things up the wrong way on Teach Point, and people were getting waitlisted for the math and actually getting annoyed. So
Yeah.
which made me really happy because I was like, yes.
Yeah, they wanted the.
Yes,
math
and
like-
so I changed it around, and then I'm working with Flynn next time. Instead of having a middle and a high and elementary, I'm going to have a K to 2, a 3 to 5, and then a 6 to 10, which makes more sense mathematically. So that there, we don't have to have this large group of folks. But yeah, yeah, and we had a good attendance at the WIT as well. I mean, people really wanted that curricular piece as well. It's hard, when you have K to 12 and all sorts of different subjects and things to try to meet everyone's needs. So, offering the choices is that way, but a lot of times people self-select. Like all of the high school science teachers went to the Taste of Open Sci Ed, even though it was a whole day workshop that applied to them.
And the keynote is different. That's not.
The keynote was the performance project.
And that's what everybody goes to.
Yes.
Okay.
And basically it kicked off the idea that as we're doing this to Antonella's point, that we're trying to look at things differently, and we need to recognize student voice, that we're partnering with them and know who our students are and what their stories are in order to make sure we're engaging them in the most appropriate way. And that's where that keynote performance came from. And it had a reaction from everybody.
Why do you think
Predominantly-
the reaction was so strong? Like to have, to construct your email and was it
Well, there was one scene where, based on their experiences, there was an audio of a teacher saying things to the kids. And so some people took that as teacher bashing, which obviously we would not intentionally kick off a professional development by bashing folks, but people kind of took that way, even though this was the real experience of these youth in their situation. So I had to kind of frame that. Also, there were, different communities have different interactions, especially if you're from another country, like different understandings and different perspectives of military. So some people are like, well, I come from a military family, and these folks were saying this. Again, it's not saying that you need to agree with them or that the ELPS is thinking one way or another, but if I'm from Sudan, I'm probably going to have a different kind of idea about what the military is than if I'm, grew up in a military family in the United States, right? So I think it was just kind of that of like, it was very powerful, very emotional, and getting those kinds of messages in there. I think people just weren't necessarily prepared for it. So I could have done a better job kind of framing it ahead of time. But next time is a straight up keynote speaker, so we don't have to worry about that. It's an incredible amount of coordination and work to do this. I think next year we'll have a professional development committee that will have more of a say into different things. And but it's always a balance trying to give choice, focus on curriculum plus our other initiatives, because people need training in different places. So yep. Overall, it was a successful day.
Thank you, Heather.
I'm trying to get out of here.
Sorry. Okay, we have the superintendent's educator plan again.
Okay, so in your packets, the plan that I had included last time, but we didn't have a ton of time to go through it, but obviously it's aligned, which is why I had included it last time, with all of the district's goals, and looks at each of those three overarching goals: the whole child, teaching and learning, and supporting and self-sustaining a diverse culture and climate. And some of the things that we had put in and highlighted both at the district level, but also I've highlighted here in the plan, specifically in teaching and learning. If we can accomplish everything we're attempting with the action steps, what we're hoping is to hit 75% or more hitting typical growth, whether it be on iReady or growth on the MCAS. But we know that's probably not going to be enough to carry us to where we really want to be in terms of our overall achievement. We're looking for 30%, which last year we did not hit in terms of stretch growth, but this year we're hoping to hit in terms of stretch growth. And then, so those are numbers that not only have we shared with you through the different data discussions, but we've talked about it at the leadership team, and those will be some of the things we continue to talk about as we do the learning walks. Also, we obviously have a focus on attendance, and you need to be here in order to do your best learning, or maybe any learning. And so although we did get better, and in most cases exceeded our target, we want to see our chronic absenteeism continue to fall and continue to exceed the targets. So we want to see that go reduced by 3% again. And so that will be a lot of work, not only with the attendance teams that you heard about from each of the schools, but also here in central office, coordination with our administrator for health services and the family outreach coordinator. So we'll be looking to see how we can do a few things. One, do some district messaging, but also assist schools as they get into situations that may be unique for each grade span or grade level, or just a unique situation with a particular family. And so that's going to be something new that I think will be very helpful. And then just to highlight a few things, that last overarching goal, really it's going to extend the work that we started at the end of the spring last year with our district diversity and equity steering committee, and continue to utilize their input and insight, because it's a pretty incredible group of individuals that represent all of our constituents. You have students, you have staff members, you have administrators, you have parents, you have community reps, you have school committee folks, and really hopefully set them with a mission this year to help us with how do we continue to recruit. Everybody's struggling to bring in highly qualified staff or just staff for some areas when you have openings, as we talked about, certain number of resignations earlier in the meeting. So how do we do a better job making sure that people know what ELPS is all about and recruit and see hopefully more people start to apply for the openings that we do have. And so that's going to be one really specific task that we hope that the Equity and Diversity Steering Committee can help us with, as well as starting to build just community outreach and community partnerships. Additionally, as you think towards just professional practice goals, something that we had obviously a huge achievement on with the vote recently on November 7th, picked us from the feasibility study into now with the School Building Authority into the construction phase, really, or preparation for the construction phase. And so it's staying on track and in step and in line with expectations there. And then the town has new positions in town department heads and so forth. And so it's continuing to build those relationships, which we know as we do really almost anything that we look to do well, we need those partnerships. So those are the main areas of the plan, but certainly happy to answer questions around any of the plan or different specific aspects of it.
Under teaching and learning,
Mhm.
I feel like we've had a really fair amount of focused conversations around data. I'm just wondering if your particular goal under teaching and learning should actually be the MCAS targets.
In the state? Sure.
I think if we're going to continue to have those conversations as a committee, and feel free to chime in that, and have those conversations with principals in January and then again at the end of the year and beginning of next academic year, that kind of sets a tone and tenor. If the MCAS data is written into those MCAS targets from the state are written into your plan, because then I feel like that also provides you with a level of action steps for each school as it relates to helping them achieve their targets from the state. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, the challenge there is that you don't get to review the MCAS data till the fall. So your plan, as we report out on it in June,
We would be able to close your plan,
wouldn't be able to close it, which is, that's fine.
which is a slightly different cycle.
Yeah.
That's just my thought. There's different opinions. It's fine too.
Yeah, no, I mean, the MCAS targets are always something we're aware of. I have no problem putting them in there. It's something that we look to hit no matter whether it's written in the plan or not. Actually, we look to exceed them if we can.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I just think it helps us then, again, when we go into next year's
Mhm.
planning sessions, if it's already a function of your plan, then it helps us to provide more structure to the goals of the district and then more structure to the goals that the leadership team is bringing forward. It's all aligned as opposed to where this year I feel like we may have been looked at as coming a little out of left field with the shift
Mhm.
around data. Whereas now it's kind of like we're getting ahead of it going into next year.
Sure. So I can add those in under teaching and learning.
Be great. Thank you.
Problem.
It helps us all to have it too as a function of your plan because we're accountable to supporting Gordon and the leadership teams with reaching those goals on behalf of students. Does anyone give the leadership team any actual feedback or anything like that? You do that? You do? Is that anywhere in here either? Because I didn't saw anything like that. Like, do they get about like observations or anything like that?
They get observations and evaluation just the way you do with teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Is
they're
there like an amount they get every year?
same
Or is
amount
it?
that they actually get more informal, but then they also get formal. And so it'd be similar to the teacher's contract that, you know, if you're a veteran administrator,
Yeah.
you're having at least one announced and one unannounced for the most part. Since we have veteran principals, it's unannounced.
Yeah.
And then they get feedback on that as we walk around.
And the feedback, it's just like the administrator rubric.
No, it's probably more specific to their goals
Oh,
around and our goals, to what Mrs. Trulio was talking about. If we're talking about specifically, some of the professional development that we've just accomplished, we're going to be speaking to that, so what are we seeing? So the last round of learning walks that I did on the elementary level, I purposely went to the schools at a time that I knew the literacy block was in action. And so in all those classrooms, we were looking at wit and wisdom being taught. How is it going? We talked about what we're seeing, what support's being offered, what they're seeing in terms of feedback and challenges, how they're working with the coaches, all the above.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? If not, I would look for a motion to accept superintendent educator plan.
revisions.
Yep, with the amendment of adding MCAS targets under teaching and
So moved.
motion made by Sarah. Did you get that, Sam?
Second.
Second by Sarah. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. Carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, the big money, 2025 ELPS 5-year capital plan.
Okay, so there's one correction to the capital plan that went into the packet. If you go to the last page, where the district-wide projects are listed. The combined project that is partnered with the Council on Aging, that actually is not a school capital project. It actually is going to be presented as a Council on Aging capital project, but it is one obviously that we are very supportive of. And it's a project around transportation specifically. The Council on Aging has a van fleet, the Tri-Town trolley system. I believe they have 5 vans, 3 of which are in use on a daily basis. And recently, we have worked with them to begin helping us, assisting us with special education transportation, and that's gone really, really well. Obviously, it's something similar to any other transportation vendor that we pay for, but we have had such success that we really would like to extend that. And so that's where our participation in this project came in. But I did talk with the town manager, and it is a Council on Aging capital project. So they will be the department presenting it. We are just supportive of it. So I wanted to make that correction.
Is it cheaper for us to pay them than it is to go to outside?
In the situation that we've had so much success, it was more that we had so many challenges with numerous vendors to accomplish what we needed with the transportation, that it was a combination of, yes, cost effectiveness, but also availability and willingness. And more than just willingness, just a climate of support and partnership, which we're not always seeing. And so we'd love to extend upon that. Specifically, love to see, if this were to happen, this extend to our population of students who are in the 18 to 22 years of age, where we could start to get them out on field trips and look at building life skills in real world situations, as well as possible job shadows and so forth. So that wanted to make that correction before I dove into the other projects. No other questions on that. I'll slide back to the first page. What we did for the FY25 projects is, in working with the Department of Public Works, we've really tried to streamline this. So you're seeing pretty much just one key project for each of the buildings. Where in years past, we've had maybe 1 or 2 in a given fiscal year. It doesn't mean that we don't have needs. You can see those spread out amongst the 5-year outlook. But looking specifically at the FY 2025 projects, we're looking at Meadowbrook to do a redesign, but this we've tried to bring down the overall cost. So we don't have the milling and paving in there. What we simply have is the redesign and the rework or the removal of the traffic islands and the different barriers that are in both parking lots on either side of the building so that we can get more parking spaces in and have a better flow for all traffic. In doing so, we've been able to bring the price down to about $345,000 or just a little bit over $345,000. However, you do see that out there, the milling and paving is not coming down, but that's something that we would have to do once we've done the redesign. Then at Maple Shade, we've had this on for a number of years. We're looking at replacing the flat roof sections. Really, this has been a project that's been on the capital plan since we replaced the 2 arched roofs back in 2011. And it's costly, $3.9 million.
About the accelerated repair program that's now reopened.
If they have officially reopened it, they haven't officially reopened it yet.
Oh,
But if they do, then we may be able to do that. They have to be, the threshold was at 25 years, so we'd have to look at that. Now, the other thing there, though, to think about is if you commit,
long term.
right, then you're in the building for 25 years. So if you ever go for a core project around elementary,
You just have to pay it back.
you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Then moving to Mountain View, we have a project that actually was originally approved back in FY 22. So that's the spring of 21, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, so.
Yeah. So in the spring of 21, we had the removal of the modular classrooms approved not only by the school committee, but by the town. Funding was then set up February of 22, which then didn't allow us to get out for proposals on engineering and bid documents until later that spring. Initially, that initial request for proposals, we got 0 proposals, which forced then Mr. Fenny and DPW to go, I believe, to the Attorney General who rules on that in order to allow us to go outside the bid process and start to solicit engineering, architectural companies to help us with the bid documents. But once you go outside competitive bid process, it now is anyone's guess as to what your costs may be to get those documents. So we have spent more than we expected to spend on the original drawings. We did then go back out to bid this past year. So that was the winter of 23. And as the bids came back in the summer of 23, our budget was well under what the bids came back as. And so I know that the Department of Public Works number one priority as they go to speak with Capital Planning Committee is to fund this project. We need about $1.3 million to finish it off. But Department of Public Works is aware, town manager is aware, so there is support for that.
Gordon, just going back to Maple Shade, the year 2, there's a 2 modular classrooms. Is that a new
That's a new
concept?
Yep.
They have no room over there.
Yeah.
So that's to provide them room, but it's not something that we're looking at. It's
Yeah.
Then moving to Birchland, we have basically finishing off. We had replaced the window sashes, a number of them, while they were still under warranty. And so that we were probably able to accomplish well over 100, but we still have 80 now that the warranty has expired left to do. So W is recommending that instead of piecemealing this over phases, let's get the 80 in and then we can start to replace them starting in the summer, and you probably could do it even into the fall and hopefully accomplish all of that.
Nothing to the high school.
High school right now, no, we just have continued the district-wide, look at obviously turf, which is a combination, that's kind of a community project, if you will, because not only do the high school teams use it, but all the rec teams use it as well. And then we have bleachers on the away side, which is not part of this high school project. You get the press box, the concession building, and so forth, but you don't have the away bleachers.
We should look at that as a contingency because that away bleachers is not very nice. But whatever. Yeah, more money, I know.
You know, you can, the building committee can always look at the possibility, once you've exhausted your other alternates, if this if
Always
construction
exhaust
manager at
them.
risk, if there is additional funding, maybe there is something you can do with bleachers. The one thing, accepting this, I do need to do is just prioritize. These are all number one building priorities, but what would be the school committee's priority in terms of presenting it to the town capital committee? Recommend Mountain View, maybe it's number one.
Can you, that's, you're just removing the modular,
No, we're actually building two classrooms.
adding
in
it?
place, yeah.
A removal project. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the original project was to remove basically trailer modules,
Okay,
modular classrooms, sorry,
Yeah.
not modules. And build
okay.
either a modular classroom or a stick-built traditionally constructed classroom. We had learned with the project that was so successful at Meadowbrook that you could do the traditional construction for maybe less money and stay on schedule. Modulars generally give you the advantage of time. They don't necessarily give you the advantage of cost.
Okay.
Which is why
Right.
people may go that direction, because time is always of the essence with a school project.
Gordon, can I just add in,
Sure.
isn't, so this $1.3 million, this is in addition to what they had
We
already.
still have an account,
I just
about
wanted to know
700,000
that.
right now in a capital account.
It had already been
We've already
appropriated.
expended from it. We already have documents ready to go in terms of plans. It's really now putting it back out to bid with those documents and getting new bids.
That looks like the priority.
And it's a priority of the DPW as well.
Yes.
It's gonna squash any other capital projects that we might get.
We went into those.
What?
When I went into them though,
To what?
those.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. It needs to be done.
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand the other projects might not move forward this year, but there's already some money appropriated.
Okay. That is one. I can be convinced. Should check on the accelerated repair once.
I'll check on accelerated repair.
Yeah, maybe
Make
put,
that last.
yeah, maybe put Meadowbrook in behind it. It's a little more affordable. Although the Burton Park is more affordable, and yeah,
Birchland's,
so we'll do that second,
Second,
and then Meadowbrook.
Meadowbrook 3. Okay.
Then
at the
the
D,
turf, then the roof.
You want to do roof and then turf?
Well, the question inevitably will be accelerated repair, and for $2.9 million, we're not gonna fund it without accelerated repair, I would say. Right, opportunity costs.
Turf and
However, if we do get invited into accelerated repair, we will need to fund town portion.
Yeah.
So I think we keep that at the forefront of the discussion. Because I don't know, when do we find out when accelerated repair, do we know?
I will inquiry with Nina Popkowski tomorrow. See if, I don't know if they voted on it to return
I
it.
thought they did. I thought I heard.
They are thinking
There was-
they would like it to.
There was some talk.
And it was one of the resolutions
Solutions that we voted on.
to bring back accelerated repair, but I haven't heard anything
Okay.
from SBA. So, one is the modular project at Mountain View. Two is Birchland. Three is the Meadowbrook parking lot redesign. Four is the replacement of the synthetic turf, ELHS, and five is the maple shade roof.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to approve the 5-year capital plan as presented. And to prioritize this as presented by Mr. Smith.
Moved.
Yes. Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Antonella. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. That motion carried 5-0. Good for piano.
No,
Okay,
good.
All right.
Check it. I don't know what time it is. I thought it was 6. I don't know.
It's 10.
No, I mean,
Oh, her piano lesson.
I've got a soccer game at 7, so.
2 items. We're doing well.
Good. Okay. Got a motion and that's been approved.
Mhm.
Moving on. Thank you, Corey and Pam, for that list. We have a proposal from David Moses, who president of the ELHS class of 1980, to name the East Long Meadow High School Turf Athletic Field Veterans Field.
So there is, I did do some research on this. It's really a nice proposal, I think. And certainly would be a nice tribute to everyone who has served, whether they be students or staff. However, we do have a veterans field at the town center. So at the town center, you have a veterans field, you have a Leahy field. At Heritage Park. So I guess what I'm saying, let me back up, is that there is practice of, at least in town, naming fields. So you have a veterans field and a Leahy field at the town center. You have at Heritage Park, a Blackman field and a Stewart Memorial Field.
Mhm.
Well, new to me. So I was not sure what the committee would like me to do in terms of response to Mr. Moses. Would you like me to ask him to think about another way to honor? Because I think it's actually a pretty nice idea to make a tribute like that. But also let him know that there is a veterans field, so we probably
That
can't.
name.
Under confusion. Someone to show up at the wrong field.
Right.
Exactly.
But it is a good
Mhm.
idea.
No, it is. It's very nice, thoughtful. Yeah. I think it'll be helpful to have 2 fields.
No, we probably do not want to duplicate veterans field
street.
on the same.
Confusing. So maybe he can think of a different name.
Mhm.
Okay. I can certainly respond, thank him and ask him, certainly if there's another way to present such an honor, the school committee is open to other proposals.
Mhm.
It's great.
Okay.
We could also maybe provide information for the rec department too, because if there is a field that's veterans field, maybe you would want to work with them to put the sign or plaque that acknowledges
Sure.
at that field. Like, if we have the name, maybe it's just how do we now acknowledge that more? Town had.
There may be a sign somewhere.
Has a name, but
It's not necessarily prominent on the Maple Street. It may be further in because Veterans Field is further in.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
a directory sign. With arrows.
there was. It says it like that, but not at the actual
Yeah.
field.
Near where the softball field is.
Yes, I thought it was green.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
But it's
Could be
great.
red or white or green or white, but yeah, it definitely names it there, but I think his proposal was talking about a sign or a plaque. So maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can ask him
Good
about
idea.
that.
Yeah.
Conversation.
All right.
And I don't know who whose authority, I'm assuming it would go to town council to
Maybe.
finalize this. So it could start with rec, but
Or
For the. yeah,
DPW or
center,
whomever,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it'd be a nice way to kind of see this to fruition, but maybe just not at the
just
school.
to at least acknowledge there is a veterans field and how we advertise that better.
Yeah,
Rec department's
website.
website.
Yeah.
Oh, they have all the fields named, so part of their resources.
Will you respond?
I will.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
You're welcome. I'll add that to my educator plan.
Excellent.
Communication.
We're on the list.
Communications.
Okay, everybody's good with that? Good. Good. Okay, we're moving on then. We have the MIA eighth grade waiver for boys and girls swimming, surprising.
It is. Mr. McGee apologized as he had written an email to us, not realizing that when he asked for the other waivers, which dealt with winter sports, that we were going to be so low in signups for both girls and boys swimming. The MIA does recommend as you get close to 11 swimmers that you possibly put in for a waiver. So that's what Mr. McGee's doing. We do feel that we will have eighth grade swimmers who will take us up on this. We are at 11 swimmers for the girls team right now returning and 12 swimmers for the boys team returning. Hopefully we get more, and certainly with the opportunity of a new pool coming, we do think that in the future we will continue to be strong in swimming. But right now, we seem to be losing not only swimmers to graduation, but possibly to some of the private teams around us where they're just seeking to swim for the private team and not both private team and high school. Private teams, I think, in all sports have sort of changed the game somewhat because all your college recruitment now revolves around those teams. And there's less focus on, unfortunately, high school teams. Doesn't matter the sport. And that's true for swimming as well. Mr. McGee was explaining that because the private teams can post times publicly, I think 3 or 4 times a year at a site that's easily accessible. I think it's USS Swimming. That, you know, all the recruiters, they just said that's where they can go. And they're like, oh, okay, that's where I want to go see that individual. But we are looking to build back. We do have a strong youth team in town, and we do have eighth grade folks who would be interested in swimming.
Would they be able to coordinate practices so that there wasn't an impact on the students who are still participating in the Marlins?
In terms of the eighth graders
Yeah.
joining the high school team, that's the hope. Yeah, that we work with them so that they would practice with the high school team.
Yeah, they can't do both. Right.
I don't believe they can. They would. They
Okay.
can't certainly swim in a meet for the high school and then the same day swim
Same
in a
day.
meet for the Marlins. Generally, practice. If the high school team has a practice, then you have to go to the high school team practice, as opposed to. However, if the Marlins are having a practice, and the high school team is not practicing, I believe that they can go to that practice. Yes. I have to double check. It's called the bona fide team rule, but I think that we modified it a while back at the MIA so that you could do that.
Yeah, I remember we had this conversation with baseball last year, I think, and softball too, like making sure that the,
As long as there's
Rec
not a high school
sports.
event, practice or
Yeah.
game, you could then participate in the rec program.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Audrey, what do you think about swimmers? You join the team, help them out?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends on the swim team.
Yeah,
I don't feel bad.
I know. Well, you might get some help here, so.
We have 11 friends on the swim team.
I know, exactly.
Hopefully more now.
I moved to approve the MIA eighth grade waiver for boys and girls swimming as presented.
Motion made by Antonella, second by Kate, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay, that carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Mr. McGee know. We got our team equipment.
Okay. And the final agenda item we have, it's school committee members partnering with individual schools.
This was something that we had done, I believe, pre-COVID.
It's like the year before. The year of.
Of.
Maybe the year of COVID. It got knocked around a little bit, thing of 20.
Yep.
But it was the idea that each member has one school on which he or she focuses and maybe visits a little bit more often and just then is able to report back some things that are going on there that are unique and exciting and worth making sure that the public knows about.
That idea.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game.
Love it.
Anyone have preferences in terms of schools of their choice?
You want the high school.
I don't know, you can have a little one going to the elementary school pretty soon.
You got time.
On a personal level.
I got 2 years for that.
I would do the high school.
Sold.
I'm comfortable with any of the others.
Amy,
I don't have a preference either.
Kate, you have to pick one. I'm telling you now.
Oh, Maple Leaf or Mountain View.
That's
You have a
two.
preference on the, no.
No, I really
You
don't.
don't.
Mm-mm.
Mountain View, please.
Mountain View, okay. You get to pick next.
Birchland.
Birchland, excellent. So we have Maple Shade and Meadowbrook left. My friend, doesn't make a difference to me neither.
I'll do.
Let's flip a coin.
I flip a coin.
Draws. Rocks, paper, scissors.
I'll do Maple Shade.
Okay.
Okay.
Meadowbrook I have then. Excellent.
Well, look at it.
Thank you.
Back
I'll
where it all started.
let the principals know. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we have no other further business. Audrey has a piano lesson to get to, so
Okay, I mentioned a soccer game.
I was as well. That's right. Thank you. And so that motion, please. Moved by Sarah. Second by Antonella. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
I.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.